One very important thing had to happen, and to happen quickly, for Hitler's offensive in the Ardennes, Operation Wacht am Rhein, to succeed. His armoured spearhead forces had to quickly capture a series of bridges across the Meuse River in Belgium, permitting a rapid breakout from the rolling hills and forests of the Ardennes to the operation's primary objective, the Allied supply port at Antwerp. If the Germans could smash through the weak and thinly stretched American divisions defending the Ardennes region, and then race to the bridges, there was a slim chance that the Germans would be able to cross the river and move on to Antwerp before the Allies could organize strong counterattacks against the flanks of the German advance. The Germans could not afford to get bogged down and prolong fighting with American units, but the plan's weakness was obvious. The Germans might very well smash through the American defences, only to find the vital Meuse bridges blown up by US engineers. Hitler insisted that the bridges be captured by a daring ruse and held until the panzers arrived, and to perform this miracle he turned to Germany's chief commando, the 6'4" tall, scar-faced Austrian SS Sturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny. Major Skorzeny had become the go-to man for difficult missions, and so far had managed some impressive stunts. In 1943, he had organized the liberation of deposed Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, who was being held in a ski hotel atop the Gran Sasso mountain outside Rome. Making a daring glider-borne assault, a team of Luftwaffe paratroopers and SS commandos had stormed the hotel, freed Mussolini, and spirited him away to Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters, the Wolf's Lair. In 1944, Skorzeny had organized Operation Panzerfaust, the kidnapping of the Hungarian regent's son in Budapest, forcing Hungary to remain in the Axis. A brilliant self-promoter and salesman, Skorzeny was held in the highest esteem by Hitler. Skorzeny was summoned to the Wolf's Lair on the 22nd of October 1944, where Hitler promoted him to Obersturmbannführer or lieutenant colonel and outlined some of his Ardennes planning. The final mission objectives, to which Skorzeny was only informed about days before Operation Wacht am Rhein began, in common with all other German commanders taking part, were as follows. Skorzeny was told to form a unit of English-speaking commandos who would dress in American and British uniforms and drive a collection of captured tanks, half-tracks, armoured cars and jeeps through the Ardennes to swiftly capture and hold the vital Meuse River bridges at Amé, Angy and Huy. A subsidiary task was to sow confusion and disruption behind American lines by misdirecting traffic, turning road signs and killing messengers. With only 5 to 6 weeks to recruit and train men for what Skorzeny named Panzer Brigade 150, he announced his plans and requirements to the Army High Command 4 days after his meeting with Hitler. Skorzeny demanded 15 American Sherman tanks, 20 armoured cars, 20 tank destroyers, 100 jeeps, 40 motorcycles, 120 trucks, and 3,300 men. Obtaining the vehicles would be a major headache. The Germans had of course captured many examples of American vehicles since first fighting them in North Africa in 1942-43, and also in Italy and in the Normandy campaign in France. Some had been sent for testing in Germany, and some had been retained by the German units that had captured them, and they were reluctant to hand them over for some unspecified mission. American uniforms were easier to obtain, and in some prisoner-of-war camps the Germans gathered up combat jackets, helmets, etc. Panzer Brigade 150 was headquartered and trained at Grafenwöhr in Bavaria. Only 2 Sherman tanks were delivered, both in bad condition. Skorzeny decided to use modified German armour in place of American tanks and tank destroyers, and using sheet metal, 5 M10 tank destroyers were created from disguised Panthers, and 5 Stug assault guns were simply painted olive drab and gained white stars. 1 actual Sherman tank also took part. 4 US Army M8 armoured cars were found, along with 30 jeeps and 15 trucks. The shortfall was again made up with German vehicles painted OD green and with the white Allied star applied. On the 25th of October, a request had been sent out to all German commands in the West for men who spoke English to come forward. Eventually, 30 to 40 men were found who were good English speakers, 120 to 150 who spoke the language moderately well, and 200 or so who had learned English at school. The rest of the brigade were German speakers. The scaled-back Panzer Brigade 150 was reduced to 2,500 men. The main commando unit within the brigade was Einheit Stielau, consisting of 150 good English speakers, some who could do American accents, dressed in US uniforms and equipment. But few of these men were commandos. Little time was available to train them for their mission. Given short courses in demolition and radio skills, and lectures on US Army structure and rank badges, and instruction in US drill, they were split into jeep-borne patrols to conduct 3 main missions. Demolition squads of 5 to 6 men in a couple of jeeps were to destroy bridges, to inhibit US retreat or reinforcement, and take out vital fuel and ammunition dumps. Special reconnaissance squads, each of 3 to 4 men in a jeep, were to prowl around the Meuse River area, checking out bridge defences and generally making a nuisance of themselves, turning signposts, issuing bogus orders to passing US units, etc. The third groups had orders to disrupt the US chain of command by cutting telephone lines and destroying radio stations. Several methods were agreed so that the disguised Germans could recognize each other once out in the field, and one way was the wearing of colored neck scarves. The umbrella name for these operations was Greif. The bulk of Panzer Brigade 150, including the disguised American armor, would advance in 3 battle groups behind the 3 main attacking German panzer divisions and exploit forward once penetrations of the US lines had been made. The German attack opened on the morning of the 16th of December 1944, surprising American units in the Ardennes. Volksgrenadiers in the leading divisions managed to punch holes in the US lines, through which the panzer divisions attempted to exploit. But US resistance was more ferocious than expected, and many isolated American units fought on for days, slowing down the German advance with fatal consequences for Hitler's plan. Skorzeny's Einheit Stielau English-speaking commandos went into action straight away. After the war, Skorzeny would tell interrogators that one of his teams entered the US-held town of Malmedy on the 16th of December. Another team in jeeps managed to make a US unit withdraw from Poteau on the same day. Apparently, another team switched some road signs and managed to misdirect an entire US regiment marching towards the front. Although the physical impact of the Einheit Stielau teams was fairly minor, the psychological effect of their presence became significant. Once it became known to US troops that disguised Germans were among them, confusion and suspicion reigned. Military police took to demanding answers to questions that they thought any genuine American would know, like who won the World Series, state capitals, etc. Woe betide any incorrect answers, and many genuine Americans, from brigadier generals down to buck privates, were temporarily detained after giving incorrect replies. In the worst cases, military police opened fire on suspicious GIs, killing several innocent men. Skorzeny's 44 men from Einheit Stielau sent into the Ardennes, behind US lines, actually caused by their mere presence confusion and disruption out of all proportion to their numbers. Things got worse on the 17th of December, when a 3-man Einheit Stielau team was captured in a village after giving an incorrect password. They revealed that the Germans had a mission underway to capture or kill Allied Supreme Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower, based in Paris. This was untrue, but was another ruse thought up by Skorzeny. The threat was taken very seriously, and Eisenhower was confined to his headquarters by heavy security for several critical days during the Battle of the Bulge. Field Marshal Sir Bernard Montgomery had a rougher time of it. Commanding the British 21st Army Group north of the German penetration, When he got wind of Eisenhower's confinement, Monty drove forward with his staff to Malmedy to show his face among US troops and increase his prestige. The stunt backfired because a rumor had spread that a German commando disguised as Monty had already bluffed his way past several US checkpoints. Taking no chances, GIs halted Montgomery's car at a checkpoint, but Monty ignored them and told his driver to carry on. The Americans shot at the tires on Monty's staff car, and he and his staff officers were roughly bundled at gunpoint into a barn and detained for hours. Monty was hopping mad, demanding the GIs be court-martialed. Eventually, a British captain the Americans recognized turned up and freed Monty from his imprisonment. Eisenhower was apparently delighted when the story was recounted to him. As for those Einheitsstiefel soldiers who fell into American hands, dressed in American uniform, no mercy was shown. In total, 17 would be court-martialed and shot by firing squad. Due to logistical problems and heavy American resistance, Panzer Brigade 150 battle groups were late entering the battle behind the regular German tank formations. Assigned the mission to capture the town of Malmedy by tricking the American garrison there by putting fake American vehicles in the lead of the German advance, the American defenders were tipped off and ready for them. The brigade was beaten back and lashed by US artillery, during which Skorzeny was wounded.
A Mark 6 tank camouflaged by the Nazis to resemble a US M10 tank destroyer. Complete with our white stars and divisional markings, it was knocked out when it tried to penetrate the American lines. The disguised tank is removed by the 462nd Ordnance Evacuation Company.
On the 28th of December, Panzer Brigade 150 was withdrawn from the battle and disbanded. Sent to the Eastern Front, Skorzeny also came west in March 1945 with orders to destroy the Ludendorff Bridge over the Rhine at Remagen, but failed. Hitler nonetheless awarded him the Oak Leaves to his Knight's Cross for his previous service. Arrested at the war's end and tried in 1947 at Dachau for ordering his men to wear American Army uniforms in battle, the charges were dismissed as evidence was admitted that Allied forces had done the same on secret missions. Skorzeny was nonetheless detained at an internment camp awaiting a denazification court decision. In July 1948, he escaped by the novel method of being removed from the camp by 3 United States military policemen, who were in fact former SS officers in disguise, old habits dying hard. He hid out in Bavaria for 18 months and was also photographed in Paris. In 1950, he fled to Spain, working as a military advisor in Egypt and possibly Argentina alongside several former Nazis, and ironically, it has been alleged he was also an asset for Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency. He died of lung cancer in Madrid in July 1975, aged 67, his funeral attended by many German veterans and many old Nazis. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my new audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon, details in the description box below.